GM Gotchi gang, what's going on? It's Lost Local here, broadcasting live from the Gotchiverse. We've got another great DAO tooling discussion on the books for you this morning. So we're going to get started with that shortly. But just to give everyone a quick, brief overview of Aavegotchi, we are a community-owned blockchain-based gaming protocol. We launched in 2020. We've been shipping every week since. Lots and lots of exciting stuff going on in the Gotchiverse. We invite everyone to come over and check us out at aavegotchi.com. Grab a Gotchi, jump in the verse, and check out what we've got cooking. Today, we've got Jonah from Den, who's going to be discussing the Den multisig wallet, which is an awesome tool, which will be super useful for a lot of our Gotchi gang and guild members. As always, this is an opportunity to bring some new products to the masses. By no means a full endorsement, but we do think that what Jonah's working on is super excellent, and we'd love to let everyone else know about it. So without further ado, let's bring Jonah up and let him tell us all about it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that great intro, Lost Local, and thank you so much to the host and the entire Aavegotchi community for having me today. Super excited to tell everyone about what we're up to at Den, the problems we're solving, and the world we're trying to help build, which I think is very aligned with Aavegotchi and the dream of true community ownership and true ownership over your digital assets. So happy to dive right into explaining what Den is, a demo. Lost Local, anything before that?
No, I mean, we've got a pretty big brain community, so they're pretty tech savvy. So I know that there's a live chat, so I'm sure they'll pop in any questions, but I think you can just hit the ground running, and if anything pops up, we'll go ahead and address it.
Great. Well, yeah, I'm Jonah. I'm one of the co-founders of Den. Den is the fastest multisig for on-chain teams powered by Safe. What that means is we are an interface directly on top of the Gnosis Safe contracts. So if you already have a Gnosis Safe and you sign into Den, we'll automatically fetch it, and you can use that in Den. What we're really focused on at Den is making the multisig experience as fast as possible and trying to understand the biggest user experience pain points a lot of teams have while operating on chain. Today, there's three major problems that Den solves for the multisig experience. And I'll dive into what each of those are and show those in the demo. But at a high level, those three problems are: it's really hard to coordinate signers and to get everyone to just sign the transaction. People forget, they're away from their hardware wallet, they get distracted, and it can take days, even weeks sometimes, to sign these transactions. The second problem is understanding what's happening in these multisig transactions, particularly for some of the more complicated ones like adjusting a protocol or interacting with a smart contract. It can be really difficult to understand what inputs are going into the function. Is it doing the thing that we actually think it's doing? And are we confident we're not going to get rugged? And finally, the third question that Den helps solve is it's really challenging to create some of these multisig transactions. A lot of the teams that we work with before Den were actually building custom internal dashboards and writing Python scripts to be able to create some of these multisig transactions, taking valuable engineering resources away from focusing on the core product work that those team members should really be working on. So that's kind of a high level of what Den is solving today. And I'll show you all how we're all solving that in the demo. And we're kind of where we're going is everything that we can do to make on-chain teams faster and more effective. Our mission at Den is to accelerate the transition to a crypto-native economy. And that can only happen if on-chain organizations can significantly outpace their off-chain counterparts. With that, before I dive into the demo, any questions?
Not from my end. It's super exciting, and the problems that you're addressing here are definitely the big ones, right? I think many of us that have been involved in multisigs have been waiting for those funds to move, and then it's chasing someone down. It's kind of like the worst part of corporate life mixed with banking. Not very fun at all. I don't think we have any questions from the audience right now. Let me just check here. No, I think we're good to go, Jonah.
Great. Happy to hop into a demo. I'm going to share my screen. And if anyone has questions at any time, feel free to just stop me and interrupt. And so what I'm going to do for this demo is actually show you Den in action with one of our users. One of the great things about working with DAOs, as you all know, is some of them are totally open and transparent. So we actually get the best feedback from just seeing the product in action in these open, transparent communities. So I'm going to share my screen. Oh, sorry. A lot of options here. Cool. Everyone see me sharing my screen?
Yeah, we've got the infinite bubble, and now we're good. Yeah, we can see your screen.
Awesome. So the first problem I mentioned for that Den is solving is that coordination problem. It's hard to get everyone to sign the transaction. And I'd like to welcome you guys to the Juicebox Discord. Juicebox has been a Den user for a long time. For those unfamiliar, Juicebox is a crowdfunding platform, among many other things. There's really big dreams for what's happening in Juicebox and really cool things happening there. But they have a multisig that they use to manage their operations, manage the protocol, configure the protocol. And so in their Discord server, they have our Den notification bot. So Den currently supports Discord, Telegram, and SMS. And what we do is whenever you have a new transaction that needs to be signed, we send you a notification. And we'll continue sending follow-up notifications at a time interval that you specify until that's executed, so people don't forget to sign that transaction. You'll notice a few things in this notification. We have the transaction nonce, the number right here. We have what safe this transaction is on. We have a description from the Juicebox team. It looks like this is a governance proposal. And then we can actually click here to go see what that governance proposal is because of a link that they shared. Looks like something's going on with the Juicebox website, so we won't worry about that for now. One thing you might also notice is a bunch of folks are tagged in this notification. What Den does is it'll recognize who has not yet signed the transaction, and it will only tag the folks who have not yet signed yet. So you're not getting pinged if you've done the right thing and you've already signed. That's a super high level on the notifications. There's some other fun bot commands and features here. But before I move on to the next section, any questions?
We'll wait and see if any come in, but from my end, that's an awesome feature, and it's better than, it also takes the onus off of having that one person who has to be the one to be the annoying human. So it's nice to let the computer be the annoying one, perhaps, even though it's necessary. So that's great. But no, I don't think we have any questions as of now, Jonah.
Cool. Yeah, exactly. As you said, Lost Local. What we found from a lot of teams that use Den is they used to constantly be uncomfortable because they just had to be like, hey, I need you to sign this multi-sig transaction. And then when there's something else you got to ask a teammate for, it's, oh, I already just asked them to do this thing for me. And it totally, just automates it, takes the onus off of that person. But yeah, that's the first problem Den solves. The next is it's hard to understand what's happening in these transactions. And to solve that, Den created a transaction signing page that shows really clearly what's actually happening in a transaction. And to show you guys this, I actually want to do a quick contrast of some transactions. So let me pull up, this is going to be a good example, 207. So I'm going to ask you to be the guinea pig here, Lost Local. What do you think's happening in this transaction?
Let's see. Sorry, I gotta. It looks like we've got one member signed it as of now, and that's pretty much it. Did I get the answer right, or?
So this one's actually been executed. You can see right here, confirmations 9 of 9, and there's a whole bunch of complicated inputs to this transaction.
They brought the right person on because I'm the least technical person on the team. So it's good that I'm the one running through this. So
perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I won't torture you any longer. I'm going to bring up this exact same transaction in Den. This was number 207. And if I navigate here, we can see that all of this data that was in this very kind of technical looking form is parsed out to be much more human readable.
Yeah.
One specific example of this is we have this data field, which is an object, and we can see, hey, there's some integers, there's some addresses here, but I'm not exactly sure what's going on. In Den, we'll actually parse out all of these parameters. We'll pull the names of variables from the smart contract. So you can actually much more clearly understand what's happening in this transaction. What are we actually setting to these values? And if you don't understand what something is, what we actually let you do is just click on it and we'll search for it in the code. And we can say, all right, well, now we know a discount rate is this percentage. So that's one of the three major things we do to help folks understand transactions is this parsing of the parameters. This transaction has been executed and we're not a safe owner, so some things are hidden. So I'm going to go to a transaction on one of the Den safes that has not been executed yet to show some of the other features. So let's do, I think this one should work. Yes, let's do this. So similar page to the last one, just a different transaction. And you can see right here, we have this description. Now, this is a description that's only available to the team. That's the signers on the multisig. And anyone that's a signer can edit this description. So let's say I know that something is a little more specific. I want to say, hey, we're actually paying them for accounting services. And everyone on my team can see this description. So you know why you're actually executing this transaction. Or maybe you can include a link to a spreadsheet that says, hey, this is who's supposed to get paid out this much in this transaction. So
Cool.
that's kind of
really cool stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah. For workflow and, you know, just from like, I've worked Web 2 for a long time and now I'm, you know, Web 3 native, and just there's so many elements of being on the blockchain that are intimidating to folks. And this is such a wonderful way to streamline that. So I just wanted to jump in. It's really, really cool.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. The way we really think about these things at Den is, you know, there's a lot of problems that have been solved in the Web 2 world that don't really exist in the Web 3 world. And our approach isn't, hey, we're going to take what's in Web 2 and apply it, but rather understand what are the problems for a lot of these Web 3 orgs. It sounds like you've experienced some of them. And then ask the question of, hey, what can we do to solve those sorts of problems? And what inspiration can we take from other places?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a Notion user for quite a while, and you know, it's a really wonderful tool, but at the same time, there are a lot of boundaries for folks that are going to get intimidated by some of the Web3 functionality. So
Totally. So there's one more really exciting feature on this page that I want to show everyone. So we've seen the description, so you know you can share why the transaction is being executed or more details. We're seeing this parsing to showing what actually happens in the transaction. It looks like in this one, we're sending tokens to a few different addresses. And then finally, we have our built-in simulation feature. This simulation is powered by Tenderly, but we do some additional parsing to make it a little more clear what's happening. So you can see here, this simulation succeeded. So if we execute this transaction, it's likely to succeed. And you'll notice these three tabs: token transfers, state changes, and event logs. In this token transfers tab, we just tell you what tokens transferred. If it's the chain's native token, like Matic in the case of Polygon, we tell you the balance changes. And if you do a token approval, which is a really common source of vulnerabilities, people accidentally doing approvals to a malicious contract, we'll actually tell you here as well if you're doing an approval. And if you're more technical, you can dive into the state changes, what's happening at the low level, as well as some of the event logs that are emitted by the contract that you're interacting with. So that's kind of the major second problem of understanding what's happening in a transaction, how we solve it. Any questions that folks have before I move on to that last big problem we solve?
yeah, we have one that just came in. Are you able to see that on the screen, Jonah?
Let me flip back.
I can read it to you. The question is it possible to label addresses so we're not looking at wallet IDs, or do we need ENSs or something?
Great question.
Good job.
One of our engineers is working on that as we speak. And actually, I'll give you a little alpha leak because we're testing it in stage right now. So we're constantly switching out our staging environment. So I can't promise you that it's going to work, but let's see if we can do a little alpha leak. There's a lot of testing happening here. All right, let's log in really quick. This should be out very soon, but I think this community is the first one to actually get an alpha leak of this feature.
Love it.
So let's go to optimism because I don't think we've labeled any. I'm going to do this one. So this is a feature that's coming. You can see that the address pills look a little different than they did here, where they're a lot more condensed. And actually what we'll do is we'll warn you if you haven't saved an address to your address book, because we want to make sure that everything that you're interacting with is something that's familiar. So we've got this one, withdraw ETH from this unlabeled address. This looks like it's the WETH gateway for Aave based on clicking on this function call. So if I just click this, I can just change the label to Aave v3 WETH gateway. Save that name, and there we go. Now this address is labeled, and you can actually see who's the last person that changed this address if you want the underlying information, and you can open that in Etherscan. So this isn't in prod yet, but it is coming soon. So great question. I think it was Thorax.
Yeah, that was Thorax. So
awesome.
The way that that's set up, is there like, could an admin can set up like a directory for the entire safe, and then it's saved for everybody?
Exactly. So everything in Den is saved at the safe level. So if that's names of contracts, names of safes, names of signers, transaction description messages, all of that is shared across all of the safe owners.
Super cool. Really awesome. Any more questions from the audience before we keep going? Let's see. No, everyone is stoked. I can tell you that much. So
awesome. Glad to hear. And if folks have questions, feel free to chime in at any time. So the last major problem we solved that I spoke about earlier was creating those transactions. And what we really wanted to do is enable folks to create any sort of transaction in Den. So if I click up here to this create transaction button, I think signing into the staging environment signed me out here actually. So let me sign back in, click create transaction. And we have a very guided flow that makes it really easy to create any sort of transaction you want. So let's select Polygonal Den, and you'll notice two things happening here. One is we have a couple options on how to create a transaction. So we can just send tokens if that's, you want to do a simple token transfer. You can use Wallet Connect if you want to connect to a dApp. You can build it manually if you want to use our custom transaction builder. And you can actually reuse a past transaction. So if there's a certain type of transaction you're doing all the time, let's say it's claiming DeFi rewards, running payroll, whatever else you're doing, you can actually take that past transaction, use that as a template, and modify it in the little ways so you don't need to rebuild a complicated thing over and over again. So that's how you can create a transaction. You'll notice on the right side this little shopping cart. What this lets you do is actually batch several transactions together at once. So instead of just doing one by one and then all the signers have to sign, let's say 5 or 10 transactions, you can actually group them all together in one transaction. So your signers only need to sign one time. So any questions so far?
No, it looks like folks are really stoked about the reuse past transaction function. And
oh yeah, popular one.
Now,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, so this is kind of like probably a noob question. It may not be relevant, but as far as speed goes and saying that this is a faster option, are we quantifying that through just like the ability to bundle these processes and make things more streamlined that way? Or is there like another quantifiable speed metric that we can use?
Yeah, so it's basically by improving the processes so the tool is easier to use on kind of every dimension where you're doing something, right? So we're really focused on those three of coordinating, signing, and creating. And the things that these different features allow you to do them allow you to do those faster, because it's easier to understand things, it's easier to build things, easier to get in touch with folks. And I can actually show you some examples here. I think we covered pretty well in the coordinating and signing what makes that faster. But even something like reuse a past transaction, right? Instead of spending, a ton of time building this multi-send, it's already done, right? That's it. And I can go in and edit this specific approval if I want. Let's say I want to approve 2 instead. Super easy. And I can also just add something new in. So really, the speed comes from an improved user experience for folks using the transaction builder.
Absolutely. And that's kind of, it's a major selling point, right? Because I think in the tech world, we're so used to these metrics that can quantify speed or how efficient things are. But this problem is probably one of the biggest efficiencies in actual day-to-day workflow. So you can't really quantify it outside of knowing that this is just like such a time saver, because sometimes it's days or even weeks that you're waiting for a transaction to get signed. So super duper cool. And it's very much the kind of solutions that I think we're going to see more and more of merging now. We've got the nuts and bolts are starting to come together, but now how are people going to interact with these tools? And what you guys are building at Den is really an excellent tool for all that. So this is great.
Yeah, appreciate it. Would love to show the rest of this flow as well, because I think there's going to be some really cool things that you guys haven't seen yet. You're going to really like.
Cool. Let's do it.
So let's say that I am paying a vendor, right? And I want to send them some tokens, and it was a pretty cheap vendor. I owe them 10 USDC. So I'm going to just put in here, hey, I want to send 10 USDC to this address. I'm just going to use my dev address right here, just for example's sake. And we can see, all right, we've got this 10 USDC queued up, super simple. But how do I know this is actually going to work? Well, that same simulation we had on the transaction signing page is actually available in transaction building. And you can iterate as you're building the transaction and simulate to see if it works as you're creating it. So if I click simulate transaction, we're going to see this actually fails. What's going on? It looks like the transfer amount exceeds balance. So I don't have enough USDC to do this transaction, right? It looks like here I only have 7 USDC, but I do have enough US dollar value, right? I have $271 of Matic. So is there a way that I can still make this transaction work without swapping to Matic as one transaction, waiting for everyone to sign, then sending the USDC as another transaction, something that could take days of just coordinating? What you can actually do with this transaction batching is in one transaction, swap that Matic to USDC and then transfer it. So let's do that real quick. I'm going to use Wallet Connect, and I'm going to go to Balancer. Gonna connect using Wallet Connect to Balancer, paste in this link. Great, we can see we're connected to Balancer. I'm gonna go back and let's do a swap. So I know I need 10 USDC. I'm gonna place 10 in here and click preview, confirm swap. Now if I go back to Den, it says, hey, Balancer wants to do this swap transaction. If I'm technical, I can kind of dive in and understand a little bit more deeply, hey, what's actually happening in this transaction? But if I simulate this, I'll see that this part actually works. So I'm able to do the swap. I have enough Matic, I have enough, and I receive USDC. Great. So I've got this Matic this USDC. Now I want to send it out. I just click add transaction to add another to the batch, click send tokens. And this time, when I do 10 USDC and run the simulation, we'll see that this actually succeeds. And you can actually see the flow of funds from the Balancer vault to our Gnosis safe, from our Gnosis safe to this EOA. Once that's done, I just click preview. I can do a quick description, is paying vendor 10 USDC. And this is the same description in the notifications and that the signers see on the transaction signing page. Click continue. I get this preview of what's happening in the transaction. I can verify it does what I want it to do. I can run one more simulation before executing, and then I just click submit to sign. Looks like something's going on with my wallet, so I'm gonna pause here. But any questions before moving on?
Standing by, seeing if we had a few more people just joined. But that is awesome, especially for we got the comment mind blowing. People are people are pretty stoked. I mean, especially for like when you're like we already talked about, but getting into your accounting departments and all of this, it's just like you're removing so many non-starters or roadblocks where the process just ends most of the time. And I think that's just invaluable, right? Because we're keeping the workflow moving, which is so important. So very, very cool.
Exactly.
Any questions, guys, before we move on? We're living in a simulation. It's awesome. So I concur. I concur, Zbot.
Definitely.
Cool. Yeah, we can keep going.
Cool. So that's actually, pretty much everything for the product. So happy to answer any general questions folks have. And, one thing, happy to share my screen again too, if people want to see the actual product again and like want to see any more demo. But yeah, that's kind of where Den is today. And we've got a lot of exciting things coming up to make teams even faster. And one thing I really want to emphasize is everything we build at Den is because of conversations we have with folks like all of you. We are very, very rigorous to make sure that we're like quantifying the feedback that we get from teams, that we're understanding the underlying problems very, very deeply. And so if you're interested in trying out Den, you can just go to our website, check it out, or you can actually book a demo if you want to spend some time chatting to us. We love hearing people complain about their multi-sig problems. It drives everything that we do. So yeah, with that, happy to answer any broad questions, show other parts of the product, whatever you guys have.
Well, there's no better community to kick the tires than Gotchi Gang. So, and are we able to add custom tokens?
So good question. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by custom tokens. The way we currently detect tokens is through the Gnosis Safe API. So if Gnosis Safe detects that token, then we should also detect that token. But if there's something that's missing, we'll definitely either speak with them and also add that as a feature request to add those custom tokens.
Got it. Awesome. Yeah, what's really cool, I think, is the way that this is all built is naturally there's still going to be some troubleshooting, right? There's still going to be a learning curve, but now it feels like that learning curve is way more in the ballpark of what folks in traditional business operations are used to, which takes away that intimidation, which just gives you a much better starting point. So I see all those as like real human solutions here, which are what we need more of, I think, in Web3.
Exactly. Real human solutions, making things as easy as possible for folks so you don't need to be technical. But one thing I actually want to point out, both on that point and going back to that question, if there is a token we don't support, you can actually just use I'll share my screen again, the custom transaction builder, because we let you interact with any contract.
Right.
And what's kind of if you just have this build it myself, you can just paste in the contract address. So let's say we want to do USDC, assuming this is an unknown token. If for some reason USDC wasn't being recognized, I could just find the transfer function here and do it manually. And so that really also goes into our ethos at Den, which is we want to make the super common things really easy to do. And over time, as we see more and more things that folks are regularly doing on chain, make those easy. But it's also really important for us to enable anything to be possible that you're doing on chain without having those custom experiences. So there's nothing that's blocking you from operating at the lower levels if needed.
Got it. Very, very awesome, Jonah. I mean, I don't think we have any questions because I think that was very, very comprehensive. And yeah, I mean, I highly suggest that Gotchi Gang reaches out. Let's give this product a try. I know, we are a very guild heavy project. So we've got lots of guilds out there, lots of folks operating with multisigs. And, I personally see zero downside of a product like this. It just looks like you're taking Gnosis and, pumping it up full steroids, making it even more functional. So very exciting stuff.
Yeah, and to add into that, we're actually very involved in the Gnosis Safe community. So we're one of the Safe DAO Guardians. We're one of the larger delegates for that community. And Alpha Leak, because it's being announced next week, but Gnosis is actually one of our investors.
Cool.
So we're very tied in with those folks.
Awesome. Congrats on that. That's great. That's great that y'all are working together. Yeah. Well, I can't thank you enough, Jonah. It's very awesome. It's always great to, talk to other creators and folks that are making this whole world function better for all of us, which you absolutely are doing. And I'm sure you're going to be seeing some Gotchi Gang using the product. And Gotchi Gang, let's make sure that when we're using the product, let's also share our experiences online, let other folks know what they're doing over at Den.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for having me. Sorry, but thank you for the community. Thank you, Lost Local, for hosting.
Of course.
And if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. My Twitter is JIERLICH, or you can go check us out onchainden.com or onchainden on Twitter and Lens. Got to do decentralized social too. So
awesome. Yeah. So Gotchi Gang, let's hit them up on Lens because we're heavy over there, and let's in the nature of Web3, keep all the comms there as well. Awesome, Jonah. We'll have an excellent day wherever you are, and we will see you in the metaverse.
See you in the metaverse. Thanks again, all.
All right. Take care. Bye.